Welcome to an emergency episode, a live stream talking about. Looks like Mauricio Pochettino will be the next U.S. men's national team manager. At least that's what the reports are saying. I brought along my friend Adam Turner. I'm sure all you guys recognize him. He's done several episodes with me. Good friend of mine, always talking national team news. He's been with me through the disastrous Copa America performance, talking about coaches we would hire. Adam, how's it going, man? Appreciate you coming on last second with me. I'm glad you were able to do this with me.
Man, it's a massive night. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for, man. Is like, when are we going to get any inkling or any kind of serious, reporting that, we're hiring a coach? And I think from our past conversations and a lot of what a lot of us have been talking about online, especially, is like we're hoping it's good news, right? Not mediocre news, and certainly not bad news when it comes to the hiring. And I think there's obviously some opinions on both sides as to what accounts for that. But I can't imagine there's many people out there that are gonna think the hiring of Mauricio Pochettino is anything but incredible news. I don't know how else you could paint it. I'll try at some point with us on here. I'm going to play devil's advocate and try, and I'll see if I can make any sense at all. I don't think I'm going to be able to, though.
Well, there's a lot to dive in. I'm excited. I know you're excited. I'm sure everybody watching in the chat's excited. There's just my brain is just scattered, man. Like I said, I just did an hour and 30-minute live stream talking about the MLS transfer deadline day, and then you get this news talking about Mauricio Pochettino being the favorite to be the U.S. men's national team manager, which I thought was far fetched because obviously England has a opening right now. He's coached in England for several years at the club level with Tottenham and more recently Chelsea. I thought that would have been the more likely landing spot for him because they're obviously a better team. He's got familiarity in that country. But if they're able to land Pochettino, hey, bravo, Matt Crocker, bravo, JT Batson, bravo, everybody at the U.S. Soccer Federation. Absolute home run hire. I called you on the phone frantically excited, and I said, Adam, if they hire Pochettino, this is the best hire they could have made outside of Jurgen Klopp.
I mean, listen, like we don't, at the end of the day, right? Like we are guessing as fans. We just are. Like we're guessing on a lot of things. What kind of job is Matt Crocker doing? We're kind of guessing, from a men's side. What we knew is that he hired Berhalter back, and at least from our perspective, and he took a while to figure out that he needed to go, at least from our perspective, right? When really, who knows? Maybe the board is the one who pushed him into the Berhalter rehire. Maybe the board is the one who made it slow to get rid of him. Who really knows? Crocker's not going to come out and say that. But if Pochettino's confirmed, whatever, tomorrow, the next couple days, the evidence that we're going to have on the Crocker tenure is Emma Hayes in U.S. women's national team gold medalists and going to be the favorites for the next Women's World Cup. And, we got a pretty bad Berhalter rehire, but you know what? If it all leads to Pochettino being the guy who's going to take us into the 2026 World Cup, you and I said this when we previewed Copa. It was like, could there be a silver lining if we do get grouped? And it's like, yeah, I don't think either of us were rooting for that because we like to see our team win. But the silver lining, I mean, gosh, I don't think I'd have it any other way if we get somebody of this caliber. And I'm sure you're going to dive into this, but like, I cannot overstate how overqualified Mauricio Pochettino is for this job. Like, ridiculously overqualified. Has he done the international management thing? No. But like you and I have said this too, Will, like if we're going to get somebody without international management experience, make it a top tier guy or make it somebody who, clearly has something about them that makes it, undeniable. And he does, man. He just does. And a lot of people are going to point. Let me first say this. A lot of people are going to point to, I think, the lack of trophies, right? They're going to look at his time in Tottenham and say, well, never quite got it across the finish line. But when you look at budget compared to who he's competing against for those trophies, it's not close, right? And I mean, he's the guy. I mean, Tottenham had a really nice run at the end of the 2000s and early 2010s. They were having a nice run. Some of their best years they'd ever had, kind of finishing in the 5th to 8th range, if I'm not mistaken. And he's the guy that came in, right, and elevated them a level up to all of a sudden start competing year in, year out. And if it wasn't for that miracle Leicester City season, he would have won the league. I think he got unlucky that year, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go look at the exacts. But it was like he had a second, maybe a second, 1 or 2 seconds or 1 or 2 thirds. But it was like third, second, third, or second, second, third. And you might be able to kind of point us to that. But like unbelievable finishes. And that was elevation up, right? And that's what we want to see from the USMNT. Are we going to win a World Cup trophy? I mean, in our wildest dreams, but like we want to see somebody who can elevate us up, right? Take us from where we were to finishing 7th in the Premier League to 2nd and knocking on the doorstep of winning a title. And that's what this guy can do for us, right? He can absolutely maximize the team. When we're talking about something like a semifinals run or a miraculous run, you now have a manager who's good enough to put our team in position to get it done. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, everyone, right? But at least we have a manager now who can get us in position to make that happen.
I will say this too, before I make my next point, I want to say thank you guys for joining. I know it's a late stream. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure you hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. And also, hey, share this with your friends. Me and Adam, the more the merrier. We'll welcome everyone in. You have questions, we'll read those. But you made a good point, Adam. You just said, are we going to win a World Cup? I don't know. But here's the thing. If we were ever going to have an opportunity to even come close, he is the type of manager that's going to get you as close as you possibly can. Greg Berhalter was never going to get you close. Steve Cherundolo was never going to get you close. Wilfried Nancy, I don't know. We haven't seen him tested at a higher level, right? He's a good manager. He's not been tested to this level of coaching in the Premier League or the French League or any other league except for MLS. But this is the guy who makes me want to smile from ear to ear, man. Like I can't even explain my emotions right now because this is the biggest upgrade in U.S. men's national team history. People thought going from Bob Bradley to Jurgen Klinsmann was a big deal. Going from Greg Berhalter to Pochettino is like going from a Dodge Caravan to a Ferrari, right? I mean, that's what it's like. So no offense to anybody who drives a Dodge Caravan. I'm just saying that, we're driving a luxury vehicle now. So this is just, I'm over the moon about this. And the great thing about Pochettino, we'll get more into this. There's obviously so much to delve into. But Pochettino is low risk, high reward in this situation. He could be the savior of U.S. men's soccer, right? We talked about that. A golden opportunity to coach the national team on American soil, lower expectations. Nobody's expecting us to win the World Cup, but anything he does, like maybe winning a knockout round game, exceeding expectations, going to make him look better. And he'll obviously have another opportunity to coach at the club level after this, or maybe he decides he wants to stick around and coach the national team past the 2 years. But either way, this is just a home run hire. Matt Crocker, are you guys happy? That's funny as hell. I'm excited, man. I'm over the moon. I mean, I couldn't contain my excitement. I'm texting everybody. Everybody's texting me. This honestly feels like a dream, man. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and honestly, this is all gonna be like, wait, we hired who? And it's not actually be real. But for now, I'm gonna enjoy it. And this is great, man. I'm so excited about this, Adam. Honestly, man.
Matt Crocker in the chat. Well done, whoever that is. Just well done. And Matt, we are, if you weren't here at the beginning, Matt, we have already been singing your praises, brother. Like, hey, welcome. Crocker in. Hashtag Crocker in. If you get Pochettino, man, we'll throw a parade for you too, man. Your own parade. We'll throw a parade for the team when they I don't know, but we might throw a parade for
build a statue of him. Like build a statue of him in Chicago. Build a statue. Call it the Matt Crocker Federation building, whatever. JT Batson. I mean, this is just a great day. And listen, there's a lot to be done. We'll obviously get into that. I mean, this is a surface level reaction. there's got to be some results too. But I
Sure.
mean, I just can't believe we went from the possibility of hiring maybe Steve Cherundolo, who it felt like, Adam, just based on everything I talked to many people, right, that he was the fallback plan. He was the backup if they couldn't get a big fish. Cherundolo was there waiting in our arms to be hired. If they couldn't hire the Pochettino, if they couldn't hire the Pellegrino Matarazzo, if that was the guys they couldn't hire, then they were. Let's see. I wanted to hire a coach from MLS or someone from the Swedish second division, but I guess this will do.
Thanks,
Hey,
Matt.
man. Hey, Matt, you're cooking, man.
Yeah, for Matt. Yeah, this was like what was this, like third or fourth option? Like Dolo turned him down. No. Hey, so I was kind of talking about Poch's, his coaching resume. So I kind of looked it up. I think we all know probably a high level of it, but I want to just kind of run through it. So he takes over. Really, it starts with Southampton. He was at Espanyol before that in Spain, and I think kind of a hot, young Argentinian coach at that point in time. Gets hired to Southampton, which was kind of his first big hire. Leads them to their best season in the Premier League in 10 years, highest point tally since it became the Premier League, which was, I think, about 20-year run. So just has this, kind of breakthrough season at Southampton, and actually kind of laid a lot of the groundwork for a pretty good run for them. If you remember, through the 2010s, they had a nice run, not necessarily spending the most money, but developing players and obviously finishing, I think, above where a lot of people thought. That started with him and his year there. He then goes and takes over Tottenham. And this is kind of the run he went on at Tottenham, right? They were, I said it before, they were in this range of finishing, basically 4th to 8th for, like, I don't know, it looks like about a decade, right? With an occasional 9th or 11th. And he comes in and pretty much immediately after, he gets one season in charge, and then, finishes third, finishes second, and finishes third in the Prem. 3 straight years, 2016, 17, 18, and then 19, he drops down to 4th in the Prem, but he's managing, right, fighting the battle on 2 fronts, because he's making a deep run in the Champions League with Tottenham Hotspur. And, like, I get it. They had Harry Kane, they had Sonny, they had talent. Like, I'm not saying they didn't, but they didn't have 2 lines of guys to throw at you like City do and Barcelona do and Real Madrid do. And you really need that to consistently win in the Champions League. You need almost like 2 lineups. It's just really hard because you can't do well domestically and do well in cup competitions without that. And he's managing a team in a really, I think, sophisticated and nuanced way to be able to still maintain Champions League position. They finished 4th and get all the way to the final. And they lost to that awesome Liverpool team 2-0, but a great final. So he's got some cup chops, and that's what we want to see, right? He got out of the group stage year after year after year with that Tottenham team, right? So can get out of a group when he's supposed to, right? And then, no, did he make a run every year? No, but he's proven he can put a team together to make a run, right? And overachieve. And that's what's just so exciting. And I think his Tottenham, time ended, what was it, 2-3 years back now, 2021, I think. And, he's kind of been to a couple different spots since then. And is everything perfect with him? No, right? But it's not going to be perfect with anyone. If we're looking for a perfect candidate, it pretty much doesn't exist. Or they're really young and they're about to have their imperfection with us. So, gosh, I'm pumped, man. And, like, if you ask me, and I know we shouldn't be judging anything based on just nationality, but if you're like, hey, if you could pick any nationality to get a manager, I'd be like, give me an Argentine manager. They've got the best freaking managers, man. And he's a top 3 or 4 Argentinian manager? Like, he's in the mix, and so we got him, man. We got somebody with European, experience. We got an Argentinian. We got a guy who's done it at the highest levels. Gosh, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Well, it's so exciting.
I'll say this. It's not official yet, but there's a lot of big accounts reporting that it's heading in that direction. It's not just some burner account. It's not Matt Crocker's burner account or Greg Berhalter's
Men in Blazers, dude. I mean, Men in Blazers.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a lot of people, we could go through a lot of the names. You got a lot of people, like, kind of planting a flag in the ground right now to a point where it's like, oh, okay. Like, there's enough out there now that it's like, you got a lot of people with big reputations who are late to move, who are slow to move. They're not putting stuff out. So I would bet a lot of money on it. I'll just say right now, based on who we've seen confirm, I'd bet a lot of money on it.
So let me ask you, I want to get back into his resume as a coach, because I think that's important. We're looking into what kind of manager we're getting, right? But just based on your opinion, right? Why do you think he did choose the U.S. men's national team over England? Let's say he was offered both jobs. What made him decide to come here instead of staying in England and just taking over the English national team job, which would have probably been easier to win with, right? They obviously have a lot of talent. They were the runner-up in the Euros 2 times in a row. The last 2 Euros, they were the runners-up. So why would he take the U.S. men's national team job over England? I'm glad he did, but why did he?
It's a legit question. Vibes?
Yeah.
In all honesty, like, who knows, right? Maybe behind the scenes, he's not the top candidate for England, right? Like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they put a hold on him because they've got a couple other people they're working on. So he's like, you know what? Screw it. Like F it. Maybe, honestly, like, maybe he wants to. I think I'll say this. Even though it's a home World Cup, right? You and I said this about Klopp. Like, why would Klopp take the job, right? Well, it is such a win-win job right now. If Poch is announced tomorrow, when would be the first moment we would hate on him? After he flopped out of a World Cup and left. So, like, by the time you're going to get any hate, you're going to be gone no matter what. Like, we're going to give him a lot of leeway here in these camps next summer in the Gold Cup to kind of figure it out. Even if the Gold Cup didn't go great, I feel like there'd be some grace. There'd be a grace period there. We wouldn't be crushing him. We might be questioning things. And then, the World Cup. It's like, in England, there's a lot of pressure, man. He's been there for a long time. There's a lot of feelings on a lot of sides, on a lot of fronts in England about him. And certainly there wouldn't be the same kind of honeymoon period, let's call it, right? There's going to be a 2-year honeymoon period all the way to the World Cup with him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, also too, Adam, you have to think that with, Gareth Southgate being a very mediocre manager in a lot of people's eyes, him making 2 back-to-back Euros finals is setting the bar where if Pochettino didn't do that, he's a huge disappointment, right? And that is a good point. And that's one thing that I said was Jurgen Klopp was walking on water to us if we hired him. There was nothing he could do wrong, at least until the World Cup, if he failed. But that's the thing. It's like you're playing with house money in this job. You really can't do no wrong. I mean, as bad as Greg was, anything seems better than what we had. And honestly, the only way that he would, which this World Cup's going to be different, right? They've doubled. Is it 48 or 64 teams now?
48, I think.
48. Okay. So there obviously is going to be an earlier knockout round game than there used to be. So it's a little different than making it to the round of 16 or the quarterfinals than what it was in 2022. But
yes, somebody in the chat can keep us honest there, but I think it's 48 to a round of 32. Then to the round of 16 after that, I think, but somebody can keep me honest. I would have to look it up.
That sounds about right. But here's the great news, right? This is, I mean, like I said, I'm just overflowing with emotions. I'm just so excited. I mean, this is like winning the damn Super Bowl almost, like just because of how much potential this could lead to and what can happen with this hire. But I will say this to all the national team fans. There's 132 of you right now. Make sure you like this video if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. But we are going to find out if this national team, what they're made of, because we're going to have a manager who's going to push them. We're going to have a manager who's going to make them better, who has shown he can make his players better throughout his tenure at the club level. We will know, is this truly our golden generation or was this our bronze generation? We're going to find out if these guys are for real Are they contenders? Are they pretenders? We're going to get some answers. And I think if we had hired any other manager, maybe outside of like Pellegrino Matarazzo, even he would be a question mark because
Absolutely.
he's starting up in his young coaching career. He's only coached at 2 Bundesliga teams. I think he's been a manager for 4 years. Where Pochettino, like you said, he's been coaching in a top 5 league since 2009. He's got a lot of experience. So any other manager outside of Jurgen Klopp, we would have had this question mark of, is this the guy? Can he get the most out of the team? Is he capable of leading this team to their furthest point? We're gonna know. We're gonna get answers. Everything is gonna be out there in the air. There will be no stones left unturned under Pochettino, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out one more thing about him because we talked about his resume earlier. You were talking about all the top 4 finishes that he had in the Premier League. Keep in mind, in the 18-19 season, he was the runner-up in the Champions League, losing to Liverpool. Liverpool was insane at that time. Now, obviously, that would have probably been our first choice manager who he lost to in Jurgen Klopp. But he made it to the Champions League with Tottenham, which is a very impressive feat because they're normally, I mean, I don't even know the last time Tottenham won the league, but they were competing in the biggest tournament in soccer at the club level, right? And then they obviously, I think what year did you say they the runner-up? Were they the runner-up? Was it the 15-16 season with Leicester City? They were the runner-up in the Premier League, or was that Man City?
Yeah, so it was they were runner-up in 16-17, which I believe was the Leicester City year.
Okay.
And they were, gosh, I mean, I feel like that year they had 86 points that year. Like that was a championship level season, right? And I think they just kind of, it's been a while, but I think they kind of lost it in the last 5-6 games, something like that. But yeah, and dude, the Champions League, that Champions League run, which I touched on a little bit before too, it was really good. Like he was just special. Like that team was, I loved watching that team, that whole journey. I was a big fan of that team and how they played. And yeah, and like you and I, Will, we've talked about this. Like the one thing why I've been such a big advocate for trying to get a coach with some clout from Europe who's kind of been through it is I think like when you look at our roster now, it's the opposite of what it always was. It always used to be like, get somebody who knows the US soccer system, get somebody who knows MLS. And that was legit because we used to always have a good portion of our guys playing in MLS and playing in the US soccer system. It's not the case right now, right? What we need now is we need somebody who can kind of hold weight and who are guys when they walk in the room, they're like, yo, shut up. Like, this guy's talking. Like, he's the real deal. Because we got a lot of guys play. If you look at who our guys have played for, the level of coaches our players have played for, especially our core 6, 7, 8 guys, some big names, and just some like experienced ass European coaches, right? Not even necessarily guys who are the biggest of the big names. And so like, no offense to Dolo, but like, is he really going to like hold the room, right? With those guys? Like, no, it's like, oh, who's going to coach the USA basketball team from this Olympics? You can't take some like Division II basketball coach and tell them to coach LeBron and Curry. It's just not like, and I don't want to compare our guys to LeBron and Curry, but the comparison's legitimate, which is like, who is your team? And then who can hold that level of respect, And like, I think, where our guys are at and who they're playing, like an MLS coach is just going to struggle a little bit. Doesn't mean it's impossible. They're just going to struggle more than Poch will. Like Poch is going to like immediately, right, have the room. And like, and now what we get also, we were going to get this with any coach, is you get like that new coach bump stuff, but on steroids with somebody as good as Poch, right? It's new coach bump, but it's on steroids because his tactics are going to be drastically better than almost anybody else we could get, right? The way he puts together, I think, an attack, the way he puts together, a back line, the way he can flex tactics, right? If you've followed him and know him, he's really good at all that stuff. And he's going to be teaching guys. It's going to be fresh, right? So the stuff he's going to be teaching guys is going to be new. And it's going to be stuff that a lot of our guys, some of it is going to be new to our guys in a way that's going to be really fun, right? If you've ever been coached by a good coach in any sport, you know that feeling, right? When they start talking and saying that, you're like, this is different. Wow. Okay, cool. I can learn from this. And if you've ever been coached by an average coach, you're like, okay, I get it. Same old stuff. I've done this for a while. All right, cool. And you're not going to disrespect him. And that difference is like everything when it comes to pushing a team to the next level. And I think that's what we're going to get right now is, he comes in tomorrow in September. Our guys immediately are going to start getting pushed to a next level within this national team group.
I have never been as excited to watch us play a meaningless match against Mexico as I am right now. I have never been as excited to see that. And I even the friendlies, man, the Caribbean punching bags we play. I'm excited to see him now. I want to see every single game this guy coaches. I just want to soak it all in. I want to just watch what he does, how he holds these players accountable. I want to see when Weston McKennie comes to camp overweight and out of shape, how he's going to handle playing him. Is he going to bench him? I want to see the complete opposite of what Greg Berhalter's philosophy was as the U.S. men's national team. We also have a super chat from Eli Lesser, friend of the show, good guy. Make sure you check out his channel. Eli Lesser puts out the greatest shorts that there is. Follow him on Instagram as well. He said, keep up the great work, brother. I appreciate it, Eli. Thank you so much, man. Make sure you give him a follow. He's got great content. Also, too, we got another super chat. What attacking style is he known for, gents? I know that his formation is typically a 4-2-3-1, which I think fits us pretty well, right? I mean,
and he flexed to 3 in the back a lot. If you watch those Tottenham Spurs, those Hotspur teams, right? He flexed to 3 in the back with wing backs at times, right? Like to your point, he played 4 in the back at times. And I think from an attacking standpoint, right? Like you saw him do a lot of different things in the years with Tottenham, right? Like, and here's what I loved the most, right? Is like at the beginning of that run, if you watched, Harry Kane was almost primarily, right? Like a full-fledged 9 up the field, get him the ball, play the ball into the box, let Kane get on it. And later, as Kane's game matured and as that team changed a little bit, you saw him, build tactics in to bring Kane back into like the midfield and be more of, which is crazy to say with Harry Kane, right? But like you actually saw Harry Kane playing more of like that false 9 type position. And a lot of that was because of their personnel too. And like, they didn't really, I think in the last couple of years that he was there, they didn't really have kind of that playmaker in the middle. And, Kane had a ton of assists, right? And Sonny was doing more of the scoring and Kane was still getting goals. So the thing I loved most, right, as opposed to kind of answering this question by saying, hey, here are the hard and fast tactics, right? Here's exactly what he did all the time. He did what I've been advocating for us to get a coach to do, which is don't have a hard, fast system, right? Like see who's on your team, see what's needed out of those players, see how they develop over the years, see what different things you can do with them, and be able to flex your tactics to fit that. And that was the
issue. That was the issue with Greg is he made the players fit his system, not his system fit his players. That was the issue with him. And I think a good coach has to you got to work with what you have and fit your players, not make them fit your system. And you mentioned Harry Kane. That was something I pulled up a few minutes ago because I wanted to see what his production level was under Pochettino in the couple years they played together. He had his best years with Poch. He scored, so he had his best season without Poch was his last season at Tottenham, where he scored 30 goals. But if you look at his, when he played for Poch, he scored 21 his first year, 25 his second, 29 his third, and 30 his fourth year. He had a down season in Poch's last year with Tottenham, but that was a bad season overall, which led to Poch leaving. But you could see what he's able to do, and that gets me excited about what Poch could do with Ballo, what he could do with Pepe, what he could do with Sargent. Whoever, we all think it's going to be Ballo is the guy, but regardless of who's playing at top, it gets me excited of like what he can get out of that striker position, which you and I have talked about that they need to be able to score goals or they're not going to beat any good teams.
Yeah, and I think, listen, whether it's Poch or it's somebody else, right? I think I've seen enough today to feel pretty good about the fact that this is possible, right? That this is like probable, if not possible, right? Not just possible. And so I think what's really nice is like, okay, clearly there's conversations going on. I don't think this gets this far if there's not very serious conversations. I don't think you have a bunch of pretty legitimate people talking about it. And at least, is it 100% confirmed? Well, I don't know. I don't know. You and I don't know that as a fact, right? I don't think anybody does. There's nobody I know well enough is saying it's 100% confirmed, but there's some pretty darn big accounts with big follower numbers saying this, right? So like, but the beautiful thing is that I think we've gotten this feel from the beginning. I think like Tack is, put this out there based on some conversations he's had with some people in the know. A couple other people have, and they've gotten critiqued for it because they've been like, oh, well, you're not giving us any names. But this is what Tack was, I don't know if reporting is the right phrase here, Will, but like Tack was just relaying an anonymous convo that he had. You've done that before on your Twitter as well, right? You have people you talk to who are in the know in some different ways and within the league and within the world. And you put it out there sometimes. You say, here's what I'm hearing, right? Take it or leave it. And people get so angry by that. You're just putting a lie out there. And it's like, no, you're not. Like some people do that, but I know you're not. I know you well enough. I know Tack's not. And what Tack was reporting on, or what his source told him, was exactly this, right? Like the USMNT we're talking to some big names. And that's exciting, right? To me, that in and of itself is a big move forward. Now, if this all goes to crap and a week from now, we're like, damn, remember when we did that live show? We were so pumped about Poch and now we don't have it. I'm still okay with it because you know what? Like, this is where I want the national team to go. I want the national team to go to a place where we have high ambition. We're talking to big names. We're selling them just like we did with Dual Nats, right? 5 years ago. It's like 6-7 years ago, people would have been like, we're not going to freaking get like Serginho Dest. We're not going to go get like some striker who could play for England, who scored 20 goals in a top 5 league. Like seriously, like people would have said that 7-8 years ago, totally legitimately. But I think had enough ambition, and the Federation, I think, has done a really nice job of recruiting those players into the program. And I think the coaching hire is similar in some ways, where you just have to figure out how to frame it, and you have to have the right person selling it, and you got to go push it, and you got to go have ambition with it, and you got to go big or go home, right? That has to be a little bit of your mindset. And clearly these conversations are happening with Poch, and clearly there's some interest there. That's what it seems like, and that's a really exciting thing, that somebody like that seems to have gotten to a point where it's close.
Okay, so we got one more super chat from 80s Nostalgia. I have to read it. Thanks for the $5. He said, if Trump is the Antichrist, do not take the mark of the beast. Better to die for freedom than to lose your soul. Interesting topic for the national team. We'll move on from that one. Let's see. People are saying that Doug McIntyre and Paul Tenorio haven't reported yet. Yeah, but I mean, listen, somebody has to get it first. Obviously, Doug McIntyre was the first one to report that they were moving on from Greg Berhalter. Paul Tenorio, I think, was the first one to report the interest of Pochettino being the number one target for the national team. But hey, I mean, there are several prominent accounts saying that this is moving in that direction. Me and Adam are saying that we don't know it's happening 100%, but everything that has been reported tonight is saying that Pochettino is the guy. And this feels different than when they said Pellegrino Matarazzo was offered the job. This is like, hey, this thing is happening. Have your head on a swivel. This could be announced this week. Pochettino could be the next U.S. men's national team manager. And that's what we're reporting on. And like you said, it could turn out next week he's not the guy. But from everything we've seen, he is the guy. This is the person that they want. And they said that they were going to, you mentioned Tack and Pete said that they're swinging from the fences. They're talking to big names. This is a big name. And if they get it, props, like we said to our boy, Matt Crocker, in the chat, we appreciate what JT Batson and Matt Crocker and the U.S. Federation has been able to do.
Is there a chance that the Trump comment came because he just saw it's kind of like MAGA themed here a little bit with the stars and stripes? Like, do you think he just landed in the wrong place and was like,
maybe wrong stream?
It was like, oh man, this must be like this must be a Trump station here. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Derek, Derek, I see you in the comments, brother. Hey, so I want to. Anthony had an interesting question, which is also just a fun hypothetical while we're here. So his question, Anthony Manzano's question was: is there a possibility that we change coaches underneath someone like Mauricio in the development system to match the tactics he uses? And I think that's actually a conversation I was kind of thinking of, right? Not just necessarily the coaching, but and this is kind of why we've been so excited, right, about getting somebody from outside of the U.S. soccer, kind of system and mainstream, is like a lot of good happened when Jurgen was in charge in terms of like changing the thinking of what an American soccer player looks like, right? Can we have dual nats? Where should good American soccer players be playing? This is all stuff I feel like Jurgen pushed the narrative forward on, for good, for bad, whether you love him, hate him. I think it's almost indisputable that he helped with that, right? And I think we're at another point where, if you think about the last 7 years, we've had unprecedented movement to Europe from our players, right? Having a player, a coach as the figurehead at the top of the heap of the coaching national team coaches, who gets that world and understands what goes into it. And to Anthony's point, potentially has some connections where he can get maybe some high-level young Argentinian coaches to come in and take over the U20 team, right? And kind of work, under him in the pipeline in some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of exciting iterations of that. Does it happen or not? I don't know. But I think certainly if he's leading the charge for the next 2 years and maybe even potentially, this is a half cycle, right? So like, I have to imagine if it goes well, we'd all be pretty pumped for Pochettino. I've been Mr. No 2-cycle managers, but like if you told me Poch comes in and, does a good job and takes it to another level, I don't know if after, less than 2 years, his voice is going to lose, resonance in the room. I don't think it is. So is there a chance for somebody really good to have this job for 6 years and to reconfigure some of the youth national team coaching structures in a way that is exciting and gets other young, high-level coaches in the mix, right? If I'm an up-and-coming coach who would take that kind of job, right, it's not going to be somebody who's a Premier League coach. That's not what happens with U20 jobs, right? But if I'm a young, up-and-coming coach and Poch is the senior national team coach for the USMNT, am I more likely to take the U20 job? I would imagine that's possible, right? So there's a lot of really fun possibilities with like how the youth national teams could be restructured, just what his voice up top could do, right? To challenge the status quo, which is something you and I will, and Derek in the comments and Pete and Tack, like a lot of us have been pushing the narrative on this, that we just need to change the status quo. And we need to push, U.S. soccer into a different direction, away from the MLS relationship and into being its own entity and doing its own thing. And certainly there's a lot of ways that can evolve. That's, probably another show, another podcast, another YouTube video in and of itself. But I think having Poch, opens up a lot of exciting futures when it comes to that stuff.
Well, one thing I've told you numerous times since we've been friends is that I believe that the Jurgen Klinsmann tenure looks better over time, not because of what he accomplished on the pitch as a manager, but the seeds he planted that are bearing fruit now. The Pulisic, the McKinney, the Pepe going over to Europe, like just that mindset of like, I need to go play at the highest level. That was Jurgen Klinsmann embedding this in these guys' mind, or also having these guys not even leave MLS early, Adam, but going at the youth level. Go as soon as you possibly can. Go play at the highest level. I believe that a lot of that is due to him. That credit goes to him, and all the fruit we've bared is because of him pushing these players to make that move. And I think Pochettino is going to excel that even more. I'm not saying we can't hire an MLS coach one day, and I know the chat's going to get pissed at me for saying that, but hey, I'm one of the most fair-minded MLS fans or reporters, whatever you want to call me, content creators there is. Adam can attest for that. I'm not a shill for MLS. I call it out like it is. I think we're probably 20 to 30 years away from being at a point where MLS national or domestic coaches are qualified to coach the national team. We need to get the best of the best for at least the next decade to 2 decades, because the infrastructure is still at a point where it needs to be developed to get us to where we want to go. And I honestly think having Greg as the national team coach the last 6 years has slowed the progress and has regressed the growth in the national team pool and game. Now, listen, we have some good players, and I definitely credit him at recruiting some of these dual nats. But I think that we need a Pochettino to really build this thing up. And when he gets here and he does his thing and leaves it off to the next manager, whoever it may be, hell, it might be Steve Cherundolo in 6 years. I don't know. I don't want him to be, but it might be. Okay, he's going to leave it in a better place than he found it, and the national team will be better for it.
Yeah, people are asking in the chat if it's 100%. It's not 100%, guys. So it's the reason I think Will and I wanted to jump on. We were literally just talking on the phone, and we were like, gosh, this is like, it went from kind of like a couple hours ago. I was kind of like, weird, like Andrew USMNT, sorry if that guy's here. I don't know who that is, and might have an awesome account. Maybe I should start to follow him. I have no idea. But he posted something like, hey, confirmed. And now listen, when you do stuff like that, or there's some other people I know, Derek, who's in the chat, has really good sources from his days as a journalist. Like when certain guys that I know and I just have a little bit of a background with, I'm like, oh, that means something. Like because of either my history of following certain accounts and seeing how it comes through, or just knowing them personally. But nobody, about 4 hours ago, nobody I knew personally was saying it, right? And I was like, huh, that's weird. It was really just one guy, and then a couple people followed up on that. And then it became, a little bit more like, I don't know, like the smoke kind of spread, throughout the house, and it was coming out the windows. And that's what it's kind of become, right? And Derek's saying that maybe the Men in Blazers thing is illegit. Totally could be. I have no idea. But you started to have, there was another journalist, and then how do you pronounce the name? I don't think I've ever heard it. Is it Michelle Giannoni? You guys are probably laughing
Giamatti. I think it's Giamatti.
Whatever it is, like they kind of vouched for somebody who was posting it, maybe in Spanish or something. I didn't really follow it. I could probably hunt it down. And then there was somebody else who posted it. So it became like, wow, there's like 4 or 5 like pretty decently sourced people, who have something to gain or lose if this is wrong, have actually posted this, right? Does it mean it's 100%? Definitely not, right? I wouldn't trust it until we get kind of that flood. There's definitely journalists, real deal journalists out there who don't have it, who are trying to get like their second and third source, right? Right. That's how sourcing usually works. Derek, you can chime in the chat if you want. I was never a professional journalist, but you get one source. It's like, cool. You need 2, you need 3, and then it's like, boom, sign it. But so I don't think we have that yet, right? It seems like we have still a little bit more kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire. But man, there's a lot of smoke right now, right? There's enough smoke that you and I were like, man, let's get on here and talk. Let's get some other people in a chat. Let's get really excited about it, because why not? What else do we have to do with a month until a window? And listen, like we said, we might come on a week from now and do an apology video together and just be like, man, hand up, we were a little too excited.
I'm willing to take that chance, Adam.
I don't care, man. I don't care. I just want to be excited.
Take that chance.
Let me be excited tonight, man. Like this might be the best it gets. So like
this is honestly, we talked about this earlier, just the excitement, the emotions running. But if this comes to fruition, this has to be the biggest moment in U.S. men's national team history. Hiring a coach of this profile. I mean, Jurgen Klinsmann, which, I mean, there was some hype around his hire when he was brought here in 2011, and obviously Sunil Gulati wanted to get him sooner than that, and it didn't work out. I mean, he coached at Bayern for 1 season, and he coached at Germany for 2 years, but this resume pales in comparison to what Poch has done, right? I mean, we're not even they're not even comparable. I mean, Tottenham, PSG, Chelsea. And I saw someone say earlier about, but he sucked at Chelsea, or I'm sorry, PSG. He had Neymar, he had Mbappe, he had Messi. Well, to be fair, the one season he had all 3 of them. Let me pull up his honors here. So he took over for PSG halfway through the season because they were a disaster. But the one season that he coached PSG with Messi, with Neymar, with Mbappe, they won the league. I mean, obviously, the French league isn't the most glorious league. It's the worst of the top 5. He won the league, and he didn't win the Champions League. Okay. well, only one team wins the Champions League. It's not like 5 teams win it, right, Adam? So I mean, and I think they made it to the round of 16, if I'm not mistaken. Which that's when it starts. Anything can happen. So I wouldn't fault him for that. And Chelsea was a dumpster fire. Chelsea, I don't think anyone can save that club right now.
Listen, like as somebody who's a former coach, I think there's different jobs coaches have, right? So like, I think I probably talked with you about this on this exact show. Well, like as a coach, what I'm looking for out of a USMNT manager is who's a guy who's taken over a team that doesn't necessarily have the most talent, but can get them to play up. And there's really one place where he had that charge. Well, two, Southampton, right, which was his first gig in the Premier League, and he did that. And then Tottenham, and he did that. And can you get him to play up? Can you get him to elevate? Can you make a cup run with them? Now, should he have to make a cup run every year? No. The job of like getting Messi and Neymar, right, and Mbappe to play together that is not the USMNT job, guys. Like, you are not coming in here to get like the 3 best players in the world to learn how to play together, right? You're coming in more in a world where it's like, oh, we've got this kind of young South Korean guy, Sonny, and that's what he was back in 2014, 15. It's like, got this young talented guy who we don't know quite what he is. Got this young English guy who Harry Kane in 2014. If you ask people what he was, most in the know soccer people would be like, kind of role player at best in Europe. Like I remember having a conversation with our soccer coach who was a lifelong Tottenham fan at Bard when I was coaching at Bard. And I asked him, I remember playing FIFA and I was like, what do you think about Harry Kane? I've been playing with Tottenham. And he's like, yeah, role-playing striker probably at best. 3 years later, he's one of the best strikers in the world, right? Clear cut. And this is what Poch did, right? I mean, he took over a team that had nice, okay pieces, and he brought them to another level. And I think that's what we have. We have nice, okay pieces. And I think if the right coach comes in, they can bring them to another level.
Off the top of your head, and I want to ask the chat this too, 156 people, man, this is incredible. I think we peaked at like almost 200 people, Adam. That's just incredible, especially a spur of the moment stream like this. I appreciate you guys all for stopping by. Who do you think is the one player off the rip that will benefit the most from being coached by Pochettino on the national team?
I saw somebody put Gio in the chat before. I think that's a legitimate one. I think the person who's going to benefit by far the most is Ballo. And I say that because I think Pochettino coach teams don't struggle to build up and to build play. They don't struggle in transition, to be organized in transition moments, right? And when you think about who's going to benefit the most from being able to, build in possession, be more efficient in transition and dangerous in transition, honestly, it's a guy like Ballo who's an elite run maker, right? Like that guy can make runs. He gets out in transition. And I think a lot of guys are going to benefit from having a guy like Pochettino as the coach if he becomes the coach. But I think at the end of the day, Ballo is going to score a lot of freaking goals, man. And he's going to look really darn good. I think honestly, everyone in attack, like I think Gio is going to take it to another level. I think Pulisic, honestly, like I think Pulisic is going to find a rhythm and I think look consistently more like last year's AC Milan Pulisic that we saw than, national team Pulisic, which is a little bit more hit or miss. So it's a good question. Who do you think?
Well, I just pulled up this player because this is a guy who thrived under Pochettino at his time at Tottenham. Christian Eriksen, right? Obviously, he had the heart problem, which I'm glad he's able to play against. A lot of people thought he might not even make it. But what if Gio Reyna could be the Christian Eriksen role like he was at Tottenham? What if that's what Gio Reyna evolves into? I'm excited to see. I'm most excited about Gio Reyna because I believe, like a lot of other national team fans, that Gio Reyna is probably the most talented prospect we've ever produced. He just hasn't had a full season to really realize that or demonstrate that in a full calendar year. And there's a lot of variables of why that's happened. And obviously him and Greg had their falling out, and they might have been cordial, but I don't think that ever truly got healed. I think they just kind of ignored it and just did what they were supposed to do. But I think Pochettino could really help Gio Reyna recognize his potential. And Ballo is obviously up there too, because we haven't. Have we ever had a consistent goal scorer that? I mean, we've had a goal scorer, but like a striker where you're like, man, that guy could be one of the best strikers in the world. No, Ballo has shown flashes. He was he top 3 in the French league at
Right.
God, what was I can't remember what team he was on loan from Arsenal, but yeah, he was like top 3 in the Golden Boot race. We've never had a striker at that level. And so I'm excited to see what Ballo can do, but I think I'm more excited about Gio. And obviously, Christian, we know what he is. I mean, we know he's going to be good under Poch. We know he's going to play well and that they're going to use him in the best role he possibly can be in. But I'm excited about these players that haven't even barely scratched the surface and see what he can do for them.
Reims was where he was at. So, yeah.
Reims, that's right.
Now that you brought up Eriksen, right? I kind of touched on this vaguely or more of a high level before. This is exactly what happened, right? Like Christian Eriksen was kind of the engine room for these Tottenham teams in this whole kind of early Poch phase. And then if you look right there, when was it? It's a little small on my screen. When did he leave for Inter? Was it
2020.
2020, right? Yeah. And I kind of saw that and I was like, immediately, and this is what's really interesting. So up until 2020, the most assists Harry Kane had ever had in a season was 5, right? Eriksen leaves. And for those of you who were on earlier, I was kind of talking about this and how the most impressive thing to me about somebody like Poch is how he can flex to fit personnel, right? If you've watched his teams at Tottenham over the years, you saw that. You saw how when he lost certain players, he flexed either tactics or formation or how he was utilizing guys to make up for the fact that a guy was out injured or a guy is now gone. And this is a perfect example. Eriksen's I think the guy who drove the team, right? Very much the 10, very much the guy in the middle of the park, making things happen. Kane was allowed to be more of kind of a, straight in the box striker. All of a sudden you lose Eriksen and it's like, crap, what do we do? And if you remember, I'd have to go back and look, but that midfield all of a sudden was just kind of lacking that kind of playmaker. So instead of like forcing somebody into a system, right? And saying, okay, well, we have this guy, let's force him into that Eriksen role. He said, you know what? Let's take Harry Kane and let's make him more of that playmaker. Kane can do this stuff, which was pretty amazing to me because I had never really seen that out of Kane. And all of a sudden he dropped Kane more into the midfield, had him play way more of a false 9, and Kane has 14 assists. He goes from a career high of 5 to 14 assists the year Eriksen leaves. And that is just genius tactics, man. It just is. It's genius. It's a genius ability to understand how to utilize personnel, flex the personnel when a big-time player leaves. And that's a really cool thing. And that's something that as a national team fan, God, we've been missing that, man. Like it's the, I think most passionate a lot of us are about soccer in terms of like fandom is the national team. It is for me. I watch a lot of soccer, but that is the most passionate I am. And it's the most angry I get when it's like, why? Or we flex tactics in a weird freaking way and use Gio Reyna in a double pay. Anyway, all right. I'm not going to get back to that, but like that's a good example, right? Of like an exciting coach who can like make stuff happen and use players in different ways.
Well, also too, I've seen people complain, even like text messages and people call me up about Poch and saying, why would they hire Poch? He doesn't win trophies, right? He's very limited with what he's had. But listen, Pep Guardiola obviously has won many, many trophies, but look who he's coaching. I'm not trying to take anything away from Pep Guardiola. He's one of the best managers of all time.
But hold on, I'm gonna let you keep going. But for the talent Pep has had, he hasn't won a lot of Champions Leagues.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Like,
and that's a big.
Are we going to say, oh, well, Pep can't win the big one, or I wouldn't want Pep? Like, of course not. Come on. Like,
exactly. And that was one of the prerequisites you and I both had. Not what you can do with the most, but what can you do with the least. And that's what Poch has proven. He's not taking the Man City, the Manchester United, or the Madrid, or the Barcelona job. He's coaching. I mean, he's coaching good teams, but PSG is probably the Well, maybe Chelsea is, but Chelsea hasn't won a league title since when's the last time they won a league title? Was it Conte in like 2016?
I think
Maybe.
the year after Leicester. So 18
Okay, so
maybe?
2017, I think actually
17,
was that.
17. Yeah, somebody
Yeah,
can keep me honest on
17.
that. It's when Conte literally like won the Premier League 2 straight years himself.
So they haven't obviously they haven't won a title or they haven't been as good as they had been in years past. PSG obviously runs the French league, so it's a little different. But it's not like he's coaching Man City or he's coaching Madrid, he's coaching Barcelona and going trophyless. He's coaching teams that don't traditionally win trophies to begin with. He's proven he's competed with these guys. And honestly, that 2018-2019 Liverpool team was absolutely insane with Firmino, with Mane, with Mo Salah. Mo Salah was arguably the best player in the world at that time. Messi, I probably won the Ballon d'Or at that moment, but Mo Salah was very, very good, and that's the team he lost to the Champions League. That's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, my God, most teams would lose to that team. That was a super team at Liverpool, and that's why we saw a lot of the bandwagon fans jump on the Liverpool bandwagon was because of how good that team was. So that doesn't concern me, and honestly, too. Now we have to take a dig at Mexico, right? I don't even remember who the hell their coach is at this point, but to look at who they hired versus who we have now, if this in fact becomes the official hire, let's see, Javier Aguirre. I mean, he was the Mexican national team coach 2009, 2010. So, he's got experience as a national team manager, but my God, you're comparing him to Poch. I mean, we have Adam. I need to talk myself down. Do we have the best manager in not only North America, but do we have the best manager
if we
in
get
South
if we
America?
get Poch, well, right now, who's our manager right now? By the way,
but do we have the best manager not only in North America if we hire Poch, but do we have the best manager in South America? Actual quality. Now they're gonna say that oh God, his name is slipping me. The Argentine coach.
Bielsa.
Not Bielsa. Let's see.
I don't know what you.
Lionel Scaloni.
The Argentina coach. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. The Argentina. Yes. I'm sorry. The Argentina coach, Lionel Scaloni. You would probably say he's better because he's won a World Cup, but I mean, would you take him over Poch? That's debatable. Could Poch have won a World Cup with that team? Maybe.
No, listen. Like Poch is the kind of guy who takes the Germany job, right? Who takes the Spain job? Who takes the England job? He's not the kind of guy who takes the U.S. job, which I think is why a lot of people are still like, this can't be real, and totally legitimately, right? Still, if you just joined the show here, not 100% confirmed, right? A lot of smoke, right? We think there may be fire. A lot of people are going to wait, till tomorrow to kind of talk about it. And I'm sure we'll be back. I'm sure we'll be back and, doing videos when it's official and with some more kind of well thought out things. We're here just kind of riffing tonight. And like many of you, right? Like probably sitting on Twitter going, what the hell's going on? And that's kind of where we were. So we wanted to come on and have some fun and talk about it. And yeah, I mean, to your point, like, I mean, is he the best coach in international football? I mean, yeah, one of them. I mean, certainly. Like, and I'm not just saying that because he might become our manager. Like, if he took over England tomorrow, I'd be like, dang, like they got Poch. Like, it's gonna be one of the best coaches at the World Cup, right? Like, for sure. And that would make England pretty darn good, a lot better than they were under Southgate, right? And so you better believe it would make us a lot better than we were under Berhalter. So
I just can't believe the upgrade of going from Greg Berhalter, which, listen, I want to bring some PTSD for you guys. I want you to see this record that he had prior to the national team. And let's be honest, this thing is fluffed up because our region has been garbage the last probably 5 to 6 years, and he plays a lot of Caribbean teams. And hell, even with the terrible region, he still barely had a 50% win percentage as the national team coach in his second stint. But look at this resume. Columbus Crew, below 40% win percentage in MLS with a +5 goal difference in 193 games. And then at Hammarby, the second division GOAT loser in Greg Berhalter had below a 40% win percentage and got fired because his attacking style was not good enough. We're going from the Swedish second division GOAT loser, Columbus Crew mediocre manager to Pochettino. Has there ever been an upgrade like that in soccer history? I don't know if there has ever been an upgrade like that. I said earlier, going from the Caravan to the Ferrari, man. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, God Kong Snake, I saw in the comments, just said it's the biggest upgrade in sports history, and I don't think that's an overstatement. I think it legitimately, offhand, I mean, I'll put some more thought into it, but a coaching upgrade that goes from Berhalter to Poch, like gosh, like I don't want to like overstate it. I'm trying to think of like legitimately what it is in like an American sport, like Poch isn't like Bill Belichick, like maybe not Andy. I'm trying to think of like a
Soccer's
football
just so
comp. Like,
different though, because MLS is other sports don't traditionally have 100 different leagues
no, I know
internationally,
that's
right?
why it's legitimately like going. It's why it's hard, right? It's like going from somebody coaching, like being an average coach in the Canadian Football League, right? And then upgrading your team by getting, like a top tier NFL coach, right? Maybe not the best of the best, but like certainly an upper tier guy who's been in the NFL. And it's like, man, we just went from the CFL coach to like, a top 5 NFL coach. Like
That
it
would
just
honestly
doesn't, it
be
just
like
doesn't almost like doesn't happen, right? It just like can't happen in other sports in a way. Like,
that would be like a community college hiring Sean McVay to be their next head coach.
sure,
Honestly,
yeah, yeah.
that's what it would be like.
Oh,
Obviously, I think
actually, here I'll give you one. So Jim Calhoun retires from UConn, right? Longtime UConn coach, multiple national champion, and retires after a long career. And 2 years later, takes over the St. Joe's, Connecticut D3 job. They like immediately become top 5 in the country in Division 3. This is a school that like had never won, and he takes over the job. Like that's it. Like I don't know who the guy before Jim Calhoun is. Like God rest his soul, is probably similar to me. Adam Turner. I was a D3 coach. I'd be in that. It's like following up Adam Turner with Jim Calhoun. It's like,
Well, I honestly think that it is definitely the biggest upgrade that I can think of. It's unprecedented because of how international soccer is and how many leagues there are. I mean, you're talking about Greg Berhalter coaching the Columbus Crew. MLS is a fringe top 13 to top 15 league right now. And hell, when he was coaching, it might not have even been top 20 because he coached there 6 years ago. It was an even worse league at that time. So, I mean, I would go on the record and say that this is, or go out on a limb, excuse me, say this is probably the biggest upgrade in sports history at the coaching position, just because of how underqualified Greg Berhalter has been and how much of an upgrade Pochettino is. Give me 1 second, Adam. I'm going to go use the restroom real quick. 3 hours of streaming tonight. I drink a lot of water. Read some comments. I'll be right back.
yeah, I like this one. Puto. The great comment. New York Jets went from Rich Kotite to Bill Parcells in the 90s after going 1-15. That's an awesome one. Yeah, Snaggletooth. You asked what was Poch's record at Tottenham. His total record, I'll let Will pull it up when he gets back, but let me look it up for you. But I said before, like he basically took over a team that went basically anywhere from 4th to 8th in like the decade-ish before he got there. And he kind of immediately elevated them to second, third in the league. And then year after that, they made a run to the Champions League final. So he kind of took a team teetering on the edge of being really good and actually got him over the hump, right? And to a lot of people's point, did he, win tons of trophies? No, I don't think he won a trophy there, but he did kind of elevate their play to another level. And I think for us in our environment, USMNT environment, I think we would all take, the equivalent of finishing second in the Premier League, third in the Premier League, runner up in the Champions League, right? Whatever that means, if you translate it to, USMNT elevating our success from where we are, I think we'd all take that, right? It might not end up, with a World Cup, trophy, but I'm not sure there's a coach who can get that done in 26. So I'd be pretty excited. And so his coaching record, I'm finding it on Wiki here. Here we go. Career stats. managerial stats. So he, remember, at Tottenham had a 55% win percentage. He had 159 wins, 72 losses, 62 draws. So, you saw Berhalter's win percentage in, like, I don't know, what was it, 40, something like that when he showed it before. And so Poch is at 55% with Spurs. But, everything's contextualized, right? PSG, he's at 65%, but obviously that's by far the best team in that league. So it's not really necessarily that impressive. And then at Chelsea last year, he's 51%. But I'll say this, like, I think his biggest strength, right, just looking at his last 3 coaching stops, right, Spurs, PSG, Chelsea, I think he clearly is a coach who's best designed to be able to take a team that isn't necessarily loaded, right? I don't think we've seen the best out of, like, Poch as a manager at PSG or Chelsea personally, right, where he has a lot of high money talent. I think he's a guy who you saw his best at Tottenham, where he could take a team that wasn't actually really spending in a massive way, right? That was always kind of the thing with the Spurs, is they wouldn't spend to the level that I think he wanted them to like take that next step up. But he was still always able to keep them in the Champions League and in the knockout rounds of the Champions League, and kind of on the precipice of that next level up. So
let me ask you this, Adam. I was thinking about this in my quick bathroom break, right? It just dawned on me. Does this hire, right? And if it comes with success and it turns out to be as good as we think it's going to be, I'm sorry if I offend some of you by saying, even uttering this league's name, does this benefit MLS in any way if we have a good showing at the national team level, and especially in 2026?
Say it again. Does it
hiring a high caliber, high quality coach like Pochettino, who we think is going to be successful? He's going to raise the profile of the national team just on name alone. And then when he has results, it's going to amplify it even more. Does having a higher profile manager for the national team and hopefully success to come with it, does that elevate or help MLS with more national team success?
Listen, here's the relationship I think MLS and the national team have, right? I think that I think it's almost like 2 boats on the opposite end of a harbor, right? And when the tide rolls in and the tide gets higher, both those boats are going to be lifted, right? And I think that, and maybe that's not the best analogy, because in some way, I think if MLS gets stronger, I think the national team naturally will get stronger. But it's not going to be because they're like tied, or there's a relationship, or there's, a quota or whatever people, like, that's not going to be it. Or because Garber's on the board. Like, that's not going to be the why behind it. It's going to be because when a domestic league gets really good, the national team gets really good, right? That's just a fact. Like, the best 5 leagues in Europe win all the freaking international trophies, man. Like, and they're, at the end of the day, those 5 are the ones in Europe that are at the precipice of greatness almost always, right? Germany, Spain, France, England, probably lower level than those, but they've been on the precipice recently, and Italy, right? They win most of the World Cups, most of the Euros, right? Not all. And so that matters, right? Having a great domestic league certainly will elevate your national team. Does the national team doing really well, does that elevate the league, is a more interesting question to me. I'd be interested to hear some people's comments in the chat on that. It doesn't have quite as much of a relationship in my eyes, but I don't think it hurts for sure, right? But like, if the one thing, right, is like, if there's excitement about the sport in the country, probably is going to help the domestic league, right? So like, if we made some sort of awesome run in 26 and everybody's excited about it, right? Like the carryover, you and I have talked about this, Will, and kind of like what's our ideal world look like? And it's like, well, we do really well in the 26 World Cup, and then where do people go next? Where they're like, well, I want to keep watching those players. So yeah, I'll watch some European games, but also I want to go to some games. I can't go to England. So what's around? Oh, wow. Okay. FC Dallas is around, or whoever, right? Let me go check that out. And so it elevates MLS, probably elevates soccer in the country on the whole, right? From youth participation all the way up to attendance at MLS games. So yes is my answer, I guess.
No, I agree. Let me read this comment and then I'll address what I think about that as well. Brett Oppenheim says, "Hey, can you guys address what evidence reports you are using to fuel this excitement? I'm just hesitant to believe anything at this point. But is there good sourcing here? I mean, yeah, there's been a couple prominent Spanish accounts that have they're not just like 5,000 followers or 50 followers. There's like one guy reporting had like 70, 80K followers and was a journalist. I want to say from Argentina. So obviously connections with Poch. He is Argentinian, right? And then also the Men in Blazers had posted. I mean, I don't think it was a joke. I think that they were serious about that. They obviously had photoshopped a U.S. men's national team badge on a Poch, whatever shirt he was wearing at that time. But I mean, it's starting to trickle out. I think that this is. I had people blowing my phone up saying, "Will, is it happening? Is it happening?" I mean, like 30 messages. And I had people that I've been talking to throughout this whole process about the coaching hire say, I think it's him. I think they landed their white whale, their big fish. I mean, nothing is official, but it looks like it's heading that direction.
Yeah, I just looked up the timeline on this. Crocker was at Southampton with who?
Matt or Pochettino, right?
Pochettino.
Yeah.
There's a relationship there. There's a pre-existing relationship there. That's fascinating. I didn't really think about it. I didn't put two and two together for some reason. Yeah, the big one is I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's Ivan Kazanzu. And it's somebody who has 43,000 followers. They're a sports reporter, journalist, filmmaker, Spanish speaking. I don't know the outlets, but seems very legit. I think that's the one that
Kind of ignited everything, right?
Yeah, that's the one that Michelle Giannoni. Once again, forgive I've never heard anybody actually say their name. I've only read it on Twitter, so I don't know the pronunciation. But they said that this person's legit. They kind of like put a tweet out there and was like, believe this one. This person is very legit. And Giannoni is somebody who, has obviously, I think, a lot of respect in the community in terms of just like being a real reporter. Right. And so that was the big one. And then there was, Men in Blazers, put out, Poch to USMNT. It was a picture with him, but I obviously didn't take that picture today. And it was probably photoshopped, but I don't know why they would put that out if there wasn't something there. It would be very weird for them to do that as a full-on joke, but could have. And then there was another account, a smaller account that a lot of people said, I don't know this one well enough. It was like Andrew USMNT. I'd have to find it. Somebody could post the actual user's name in there. It's Andrew _S04 _ said, and this is not somebody who I know very well, 1,300 followers. This person did like quote unquote break the Berhalter firing news. I don't know how legit that is either. It wasn't on my radar. And I don't know this person, but they posted it earlier. And they're the one who kind of like that post kind of got the wheels turned. It's like, who's that? And like in a lot of my DMs, people are like, who's that? And like, is that real? And then when the other couple kind of came out on top of it, I think is when people started, or especially I started saying, whoa, a lot of smoke. So once again, just to kind of catch everybody up, I know some of you guys have heard me say that 5 times already. Sorry, but there's some new people coming in and some new comments coming in.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a great show tonight, man. I think it said we had like 2,000 people come throughout the whole stream. And it's been very fun. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well as we have. Now, back to the MLS part of it, right? Does it make MLS a better league with the success and the name recognition and having a face like Pochettino be over the national team? I think it does, because I think that Jurgen Klinsmann, when he was the national team manager, that was when MLS really started to do things a little differently because of what he said, his critiques about the league. Now, obviously, our player pool was more MLS centric at that time, right? We didn't have as many people playing overseas. But I think that having a good coach that could, work with the league to try to make it better, it's not necessarily his job to make it better, but I do think it's his job to set his national team prospects up for success, whether that be making the move to Europe or playing in MLS. And I remember what Wayne Rooney said in 2014. If I remember correctly, England, I don't think they made out of their group stage in 2014 in Brazil, but I could be wrong about that. But our national team made out of a very tough group of Portugal, Germany, and um, Ghana, right? And I remember Wayne Rooney saying, "Hey, the U.S. men's national team had a great showing at the World Cup. This league, this nation, they're on the rise. You can see it. Like this is going to be a top soccer nation in the near future." So I think that kind of like what you said too about if the national team in 2026 on American soil has a great showing, doesn't shit the bed and does this right, then the casual fan are going to tune in and let's say, well, hey, let me see what's our domestic league? Like what's that about? Let me check out one of their games. And hopefully it's not too bad where they'll tune back in, right? Hopefully they're like, oh God, I'm not watching this shit ever again. Hopefully it's something to where they want to come back and watch the game, or tune into the league. So we'll have to see. But look, this is a great day of celebration if it does in fact happen. I know Derek has said that we need to get more confirmation. But look, I think it's trending that way. This isn't like hearsay from a text message or a guy with 20 followers. I mean, there's definitely, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, Derek. Sorry. Brett is Brett. He said Brett Oppenheim is somebody we should know. I don't know who that is, unless it's Brett from your show, who I know, but I don't know last name. Sorry, Derek. But feel free to light up is a semi-surrogate rep for U.S. Soccer. I don't know him. But anyway, Brett, welcome. Brett, welcome. There's another tweet. Like, there's a bunch of these, right? Like, I don't know if you can find this one and pull it up. Like Jose Alvaro Tejano Deportes, 230 followers, journalist, quote unquote, and like and these are the ones I just like take with a grain of salt, right? Because like people pile on here and like then try and post stuff that like seems legit, and that's what can really confuse you, right? Here's his post though. Pochettino to be announced soon. Could be tomorrow. Crocker and JT will decide details. Poch has a flight schedule to leave later this week to Atlanta, Georgia. Like, it just seems like, is that guesswork? Like, not you have 260 followers. Like, and so that's where stuff like this, like, is really interesting to me, right, Will? Where it's like, there's a pile-on effect, right? Like, anybody can make a Twitter account, or who has a Twitter account can just be like, sure, like, it's a good guess that'll come next week. Like, I'll make up a really specific tweet, or I don't know, somebody with 260 followers might just not do Twitter very much, and that might be legit, and they might have a source. Like, who knows? And that's where like I'm always like, okay, who do I know, right, that I trust, and I trust that they're putting out stuff based on real information, whether you get it right, you get it wrong. Sometimes like people back out of stuff. Derek in the chat, like got something wrong, like whatever it was a month and a half ago, and then the day later was like, hey, sorry guys, got it wrong. Like, and that matters more to me than getting it right or wrong, right? Where like people are going to own it and be like, yeah, sorry about that. Like, mess that one up. Or like, so like, I don't know. If you follow it enough, you start to build rapport on like who's actually being honest about it. Not who's 100%. Nobody's 100%. No journalist is 100%. Not going to happen. Will, you have a lot of people, you talk to who have information. You're going to get information from somebody. It might just be wrong, or somebody might change their mind the next day. It doesn't even mean you got it wrong. It just means something might have changed the next day.
And my whole philosophy has always been that I would rather, you guys can say I'm wrong. You guys can say that I'm, you don't trust my sources, or you don't trust me. But I've always looked at it as I've let you guys know what I hear, because I would rather know what's being floated around than being kept in the dark. That's the way I always look at it. I'd rather know what's being said, what could potentially be happening, than just not knowing anything and being radio silent. And I had reported about the Sherundalo. They wanted him, and I think he was essentially their backup plan if Poch didn't work, if Matarazzo didn't take the job, if Vieira didn't want the job. They had Sherundalo waiting in the wings for them to hire, right? And we all would have been disappointed at that. Thank God that didn't happen, right? Thank God. Even this is a great thing too. We didn't even talk about this, Adam. us not hiring Jesse Marsh, which we were kind of like, damn, I wish we'd hired Jesse Marsh after how bad Greg was. Now that, thank God we didn't hire Jesse Marsh, right? Thank God,
For
because if
sure.
it led us to Poch, this is
Yeah.
great.
I mean, to be honest, like I think that just the option to go hunt, even if this doesn't work out, and even if we have to come back down to earth and land with somebody that I think a lot of people have said is more realistic, etc. I'd rather almost have the shot, right? I'd rather almost be able to take this shot than not take this shot. And it seems like we're at least shooting. And like that's good to know because the feeling we all got after last World Cup is like, do we even like take a shot? Do we really actually make a call or do we just like placate and make a couple like fake calls when we all really knew where it was coming back to? And we were just kind of letting the heat of the Geo thing die off and Greg was going to be the guy and everybody kind of knew that. It almost felt like that was a plan, right? It was like there's a lot of heat right now with this like post World Cup Geo controversy and the domestic violence, allegation, etc. Hey, Greg, we're gonna let this chill. There's not much going on anyway. Let your boys take it here for the summer. We'll get you back after the summer. It just felt like that. That's what it felt like when it happened. I was like, oh, I see what you guys did. That's what you guys did, right? And it's like, sure, we'll make some calls. Because what you heard from, I think, Matarazzo, who kind of was interviewed, I think, on Football Americas, and he said, like, I had a brief conversation at the end. It was very, like, vague, right? Jesse Marsh, I think, felt very put out. He felt like he didn't really get a fair shake. And so it felt like that's what that whole thing was. So it's nice to actually do a coaching search. That's what feels like is happening right now. We're doing a real coaching search, which should have been done 2 years ago, and it didn't. And so now it is, right? And so to your point, yeah, great. Like we didn't go for Marsh at that point. We didn't go for any tier B or tier C candidate at that point. Is good. We did go for a tier C D candidate. It was Berhalter, right? But like the fact that we didn't get somebody else and then have to give them 4 years and give them the leeway of failing in Copa, which could have happened, right? I'm glad that didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been. Let me read the super chat real quick. We had the ski. He said, just got off the spaces. I said the same thing about Jesse Marsh. Yeah, it's a blessing in disguise. I think I can speak for all national team fans, and I appreciate the super chat, by the way, that everything that's happened to us the last 6 years, all the highs, mostly lows, all worth it. Even rehiring Greg Berhalter, if it landed us getting Pochettino, right? Almost like the butterfly effect. That's how we get here. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. I pulled up Pellegrino Matarazzo's tenure, and I talked about this earlier for people who weren't in the chat at that point. He is a promising coach, right? He obviously has a lot to be excited about, but he's only coached two spots in the last 5 years. He coached at Stuttgart and Hoffenheim now. The win percentage doesn't really look good, but there's obviously some variables about them not being big spenders or overly ambitious teams, which obviously can affect what you can do on the pitch and your success, especially in football, right? Or soccer. So even though this would have been a good hire, I would think that everyone would take Pochettino over Pellegrino Matarazzo. I don't think there's a single national team fan out there, maybe a couple contrarians. I don't think anybody would take another coach over Pochettino other than Klopp, but he was never going to happen. Of all the realistic candidates, this is our ace.
So sorry, Derek in the chat. I was doing a little digging. Derek from Straight Red. For those of you don't know who Derek is, a lot of you do and are in there talking it up with him. I don't know who Brett Oppenheim is. I apologize. I actually, funny enough, I was doing some digging behind the scenes here, just trying to figure it out. So he's the guy who commented before. You put his comment up. He's like, the voice of like behind the scenes videos. Yeah, he's got a lot of ties to U.S. soccer for sure. So I don't know if he's still here or not, but glad to have him in and asking the questions. Seems like he probably would know more than we would. So, Brett, do you have any information? Would be my question. But Derek, I appreciate you calling it out. Definitely a blind spot for me. Didn't know who that was, but yeah, I great picture, Brett. By the way, I was looking up, one of Brett Oppenheim's pictures. Does a show on Netflix, and yeah, seems to have a lot of ties to the national team. So interesting that he's here and asking that question, Will, because he doesn't know, right? And I think a lot of people don't. And I think that's like a good kind of point to land on here is like a lot of people don't know. Like, and we don't know for sure. And there's a lot of smoke right now. And typically, right, like there's only been a couple times there's been this much smoke and it hasn't landed as true, right? And I can't even think of it all. I can't think of specifics offhand. I'll try, but it has happened where it's been like, man, like a lot of things are pointing in that direction, and that's not what happened. It happens though. It happens, and it certainly could happen here. But I think we're all hoping for hoping for something a little bit different. We're hoping that Jose Alvaro Tejano Deportes' 263 follower account is correct, and there's a flight scheduled for Poch to Atlanta, Georgia next week.
What is it? Jackson Hart or Jackson Hartman Airport, I think, is I'm probably butchering that. It's like I think that airport has its own zip code because of how big it is.
Yeah.
But one other thing to point out to Adam that's important is that the last time they did hire Greg Berhalter, it was a sham hiring process, and a lot of us thought that was what was going to happen again. That they already had their candidate, and they were just putting on a show to appease us, to talk us down to where we weren't as agitated or anxious. And the last time that they hired Berhalter, yeah, Hartsfield Jackson Airport. Thank you, Timothy. They interviewed Patrick Vieira. They interviewed Jesse Marsh, which was a embarrassing hiring process, and it's actually I don't even want to tell the story because of how bad it is. And they obviously interviewed Greg, if you want to call it that, because they already know who he is. But the first time they hired Greg, they didn't interview a single person for that job except for Greg Berhalter. They had their minds made up on who they wanted, and they had tunnel vision. They had no intention of hiring anyone else. They only interviewed Greg Berhalter. And the fact that we're getting Pochettino, and it feels like they did an actual extensive search. They talked to many candidates. I mean, hell, they were in Europe for like 2 weeks talking to guys, meeting. I think they met Patrick Vieira over there. They met Pellegrino Matarazzo over there. They probably met a couple other guys we haven't heard of or the names that didn't leak. But man, I'm just in shock. I think, hell, I don't even know if I'll be able to sleep tonight. I mean, I'm just going to be tossing and turning thinking about Poch all night.
You know what this actually kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of like the few days right before Ballo committed officially. And there was like, remember, like somebody like hunted down that he was in like Miami or Orlando. I think it was Orlando. He was like, it's somewhere in Orlando at a bar, and somebody like did digging into like the bar name and like freaking found it. It was awesome. And then like there was other stuff. I'd have to go back and like really dig in, but there was other stuff like this where it was like some accounts kind of had some reporting, big ones didn't. There was a lot of people like, don't tease me. Right. And like, I remember there was a point in time you and I could have done a live show exactly like this when it wasn't 100% official, but it felt really darn good. And it felt like it was about to happen. Right. And there was some people who weren't necessarily like mainstream ESPN journalists who were kind of out there saying it and probably had some behind the scenes stuff. Right. And like, that's what this feels like. And somebody in the comments, I think, just said, it was Josh G said, Men in Blazers has reported it. Whatever your opinion of them, they don't tend to report affirmative on something that is just rumor. And I agree, right? Like whether you love those guys, hate those guys, like they don't put out just like false stuff. That's not good for their brand or their business if that is not true, right? Like it's not a good thing. I'm going to read their big soccer brand, man. Like that is a big.
I'm going to read their exact tweet again because there's 186 people in here. I'm sure there's new listeners. So, and the context is, I don't think this was a joke. This wasn't like, I think they would have clarified if they were joking. They tweeted, Poch to the USMNT, red alarms, Argentina flag and American flag. Former Spurs, PSG, and Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino has agreed to become the next U.S. men's national team coach. Our recruiting is done. Rejoice, America. We have a real coach. And then I think it's Roger Bennett posted a picture next to Pochettino with a terribly photoshopped USA logo on the shirt. And that doesn't seem like a joke to me. There was no JK, LOL, got you guys. And he posted this he did post this 2 hours ago. So I don't, I think this is
with no follow up, no like you said, no follow up. We got it wrong. No follow up joke, nothing like that, right? Like it's just
nothing, no response at all. I think that let me just go back and check the replies and make sure they haven't posted
and this
anything
is
else.
like I'm sure most of you guys know Men in Blazers, but this is the biggest like independent soccer channel in the United States. Like they got 300K subscribers on YouTube, something crazy like that, right? And I don't think they're like bought by any. I don't think they are owned by ESPN. So I mean, this is like for somebody like Men in Blazers to get that wrong is a massive deal, right?
Yeah.
If they get that wrong and they post that, which they might, who knows, but like they also have a lot of connections. Like those guys have a lot, and they have a team of people. It's not just one or two guys. They have a team of people working for them, right? The guy who does, It's Called Soccer was like their YouTube social media manager for years, right? Like underneath them. And there was, he posted a video on it one time. There was a whole team of people doing different things for their organization. So I would imagine they have better sourcing than most of us. And if they're putting it out there and it's not confirmed, it would be very weird. But once again, I think we all do need to wait for like official confirmation, certainly from the national team account, certainly actually to hear it from the horse's mouth, if not just a few other in the know journalists to get it right before you can really dial in and lock it in. But I think it's exciting enough now that a conversation is worthy tonight, Will. I'm glad you did it. And I'm excited to kind of see where it goes.
Well, I'm going to end it with this, and I appreciate the audience. Like I said, you guys have been amazing. We got 200 viewers, man. That is incredible. I never thought a spur of the moment live stream like that would even get close to that. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you guys enjoyed what me and Adam talked about. Hope you guys will subscribe to the channel and like the video and hit the little bell notification so you never miss any of my regular content and any of mine and Adam's emergency streams. But I will leave you with one more question to end it on. And I'll ask you this too, Adam, and I'll give my take. What letter grade would you give Mauricio Pochettino's hire to the U.S. men's national team? What grade would you give that hire?
If he's the coach, I mean, it's an A+.
If he's the coach. Okay.
It's an A+. I mean, there's only like 10 names that would even be like, obviously there's more than that if you went totally unrealistic out of the realm of possibility and anything that's ever been talked about. But like, if Klopp is like the A1 number one, like best possible that you could even think of that seemed feasible because he's out of a job right now, right? Poch is right there behind that, right? Like I've kind of said, hey guys, we need to go hunt, a tier one coach, right? And then if all of those seem like not possible, fall through, then you go down to the tier two, which would be kind of like the Matarazzo level, right? Guys like that. Then I would go down to tier three if that doesn't work out. He's tier one. Poch is tier one. I mean, he's in that mix of hopefully a dozen guys that were kind of like, they were kind of like, the Christmas wish candidate, right? Who you called up and said, let's take a shot. And if that works out, you got one of those guys to say yes. That would be pretty amazing.
So the lowest grade I saw was from M Steel, an A-. And then a lot of people are just saying A. There's a couple of people saying A+. The reason why I agree and I would say A+ is not just because of the coaching ability. It's because of who could you realistically get. This seemed like a manager that was unobtainable for the national team. Like we talked earlier in the show about why would he take this job over the England national team job just because of talent and obviously his familiarity living in England the last, on and off the last decade, maybe even longer than that. Maybe it's last like 12, 13 years. But when you look at the managers that were realistic for the national team job, Adam, he seemed like he was unobtainable. So to get a guy that we didn't even think we could possibly get, hell, I might even give it like 1203 Daydreamer said an A++, because this seemed like a guy that we may not have even been able to get. Now, Jurgen Klopp would have been his special. He would have been an S+. He would have been the S tier, okay, of hiring, because that would have just been insane. He's in his own category. but I would say maybe I won't go A plus plus, but A plus, home run hire, the best we could possibly do, the best coach on the market right now that we could have possibly hired.
The best in our program's history, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in all honesty, it's like it is a it is a like for like move with the women's national team getting Emma Hayes. For those of you who know that, followed that move, understand kind of her level in the women's coaching world, it's not dissimilar at all, right? I mean, it's getting a top flight manager. And you and I have said it already in the show, and some of you maybe were here, maybe you weren't. Like what it does, what that kind of hire, and this is what I've advocated for years now, is that kind of hire changes the whole game. It changes the whole game for our players specifically. It makes them, they're all going to have a level of respect for that kind of coach. They're all going to be out of their comfort zone from day one. They're all going to get pushed to another level. They all understand like who Poch is. They understand what he means. They understand what he's done, right? Like it's going to be different. Training sessions are going to look different. They're going to feel different, right? Like the level of respect guys have for him. And I think the level of like seriousness that's brought into everything that we do is just game changing, right? And he's transformed players. We've talked about this in the last 2 hours. Well, like he transformed Harry Kane and Sonny and Erickson and that whole crew, that whole young crew. He brought them to another level. And that's, once again, that is us, right? No, we don't have Kane and Erickson. That's not what I'm saying. But like we have a bunch of young guys who need to be taken to another level. And
well, I have one more thing too that this dawned on me. What do we have any idea what it took to get him salary wise? Because I don't know what he was making at Chelsea.
I saw somebody asked that earlier. It's a good question. I kind of forgot it. I mean, gosh, I would imagine it's got to be 4 or 5 million. Anybody know in the chat kind of what he was making? I don't know. Like maybe he doesn't need to make as much, in the next 2 years. Maybe he's okay taking less and having a little bit more free time, right? With a national team gig. I don't know. Does every club coach need a like for like salary, right? That's like the question. Like
less responsibility too, right? Obviously he's not going to be doing the day-to-day like a club job.
You get some NFL, NBA coaches in our country, right, who take broadcasting jobs that are way less work and less money, right? Still pay really well. So I don't know, like, is that like, do they need, a one-to-one salary replication? Like, or are they like, hey, this is going to be a different lifestyle for the next 2 years, and I'm okay with that if I can still get whatever, a half my salary,
so
2/3.
He made $13.2 million. He made $13.2 million last year as the Chelsea manager. Obviously, Greg made 2.2. Let's see. I just wanted to look real quick who was the highest paid national team coach. I think it was.
Yeah, somebody in the comments calling out the PSG failure again. You probably weren't here earlier, Santiago, but like there is no coach with a perfect track record. Like I don't know who you guys want. Like people who keep calling that out, oh, this guy failed here. Of course. Like who hasn't failed? Like you're talking about, I don't know, like Pep, like I guess, I don't know, Klopp. Like the list of guys who don't have like failures on their resume is so small. Like it's just not plausible to get a guy who hasn't failed. Like we got to stop being obsessed with the one failure. Otherwise, you're going to go get somebody who's brand new to coaching who hasn't been in 5 places, 6 places.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently Gareth Southgate was the highest paid manager in England, 6.3 million a year, which means that England was willing to pony up the money. So we must have paid him. I would be willing to bet that Pochettino will end up being the highest paid national team coach there is once the details are announced and the hire is made official. So it's going to be interesting to see. Adam, this has been a great stream, man. I appreciate it. Hour 40 minutes, almost 200 people watched with us at simultaneously, 172 right now. We'll definitely have you back on, especially when the hire is made official. I can't wait to see what happens with that. Where can everybody follow you at, man?
Yeah, Stan USMNT. If you guys, don't follow, please follow me and interact and chat with me. I love chatting on Twitter. It's one of one of my things I do to escape my day job. So love to chat with all you guys and argue soccer. So
He's a great follow. Make sure you follow Adam. He's one of my good friends, and hopefully, maybe this will be more of a regular thing, especially national team talk. I always love talking with him. Anything national team. Hell, I've even brought him on for a couple MLS videos at one point or another. So I appreciate him always coming on, and and you guys need to go follow him on Twitter. Also, guys, make sure you like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. And until next time, I will see you all soon.